condemning it. Some expect
cave. I fortunately was able to go to, not the cave, I was able to get to the mountain, but I couldn't climb up to the cave. The first thing that came was read.
Okay.
So the instrument of speech is an integral part of mobilizing people to pursue a certain cause. And there can be no cause more virtuous, there can be no cause more ideal, there can be no cause better than governance.
Okay.
And so throughout the course of history, during the ancient times, you hear of Greek philosophers whose words could move people. Phoenicians, Persians, whose words could move people. Then we came to the medieval times. Look, the white folks colonized Africa through speech. So words are very important. And when you utter words, you can't lick them. You can't eat them back.
Okay.
So words have got implications. The word mad. Young people say, man, this was mad, this was crazy. To you, it means it was superb, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But when you say, grandma, you are mad, then that day you would have issues within the family. So what you say and where you say it are very important within the political space. The first televised debate between American presidents was in 1960. The election that brought Richard Nixon to power.
Okay.
So speech has always been an integral part of democracy. And the NDC and the MPP, even during the times of revolution in this country, Dr. Nkrumah, when you listen to Dr. Nkrumah, when he said the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it was linked up with the total liberation of the African continent, he was seen as an African star because his words could move mountains. And so political speech is important to win the hearts of people in the lead up to the election in December. But I think we should be circumspect in the kind of words we utter.
Okay. But looking at some of the statements we've heard over the past years during election seasons and then during campaign seasons and all of that, do you still think that considering how Ghanaians have come, how we've gotten to know our politicians and some of the things they say, which some way are unwarranted though, we equally respond to what the politicians say, and so whatever they say goes a long way to have a great impact on the populace?
On the scale of recklessness, we've seen the burgeoning increase in unguarded, unsubstantiated statements right from 2001. Throughout the days of the revolution, you couldn't just say or write anything. You would be held accountable. Kwame Nkrumah brought the Preventive Detention Act. So people who would do things that would, hurt the national interests of the country would be brought to book. But from the time the criminal libel law was repealed, we've seen, a frenzy.
Unwarranted talks,
A frenzy of, unsubstantiated, vile talk within the political space. So for me, Kwame, if it is important for us to hold people accountable, we need to hold them accountable. And if it means bringing back the criminal libel law, because when you say something libelous about a person, and in this country, when people sit on political shows, they pass a statement, and the best the host can do is, please, me sign. And the damage has already been done.
But what
you say, oh, withdraw your comment, and after some reluctance, the panelists will say, okay, I withdraw. But the withdrawal alone does not redeem the bruised reputation of the person you victimized with your vile talk. And so it is important that when people make unsubstantiated statements that hurt your reputation, the law should give you an avenue to hold them accountable.
Okay, but let's subject whatever words he used to at least communicate about what we really want to hear and what they are even supposed to tell us in this particular political season. Now, for you to say that, okay, what the Electoral Commission is doing, if the Electoral Commission fails to build consensus, then we are likely to see the rise of a civil war, because looking all around us, some countries that have gone through that process equally experience some of the things that the Electoral Commission is doing. So it is up to us as a nation, it is up to them as an institution to build consensus on the front line with the political parties so as to ensure that each particular person or let's say stakeholder is satisfied with the process before the Electoral Commission goes ahead. But if you, for instance, say that, okay, I'm not listening to anyone, and for that matter, because I'm an independent organization, this is what I intend doing, and definitely that is what I must do, then you end up creating monsters and then in the form of civil wars where we do not expect. Is that a wrong comment to make?
You see, you lay bare facts, but in the extrapolations you make about the consequences of decisions we take as a country, you should be circumspect. Yes, of course, civil wars happen, but the conducive enabling environment to flare up into a civil war is not in Ghana. And
you think so?
The Electoral Commission is supposed to be an autonomous body. Of course, its autonomy is questionable because the appointing authority would always have some control over those it appoints. But look, the people on top of this, you know, this issue of this election, John Dramani Mahama, a fine gentleman by all standards, one of the most vilified presidents, but he would still keep a cool head and then approach issues. He was called incompetent, called whatever. And then Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, another fine gentleman. People called him someone dealing in drugs, a weed smoker. So you see the venom, you know, we've spewed out in the past few years about these fine gentlemen. And to be a politician only means I'm a statesman or a stateswoman, and I'm offering myself to serve. Their families have not been left out. Accusations of promiscuity against their wives. What has not been said about you know, presidential candidates in the Republic of Ghana? But even with that, you don't hear His Excellency John Dramani Mahama or His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo make reference to a civil war.
Yes, but the point is that are we just being dishonest to ourselves, or better still, we are trying to be hypocritical, not really considering the realities on the grounds? Because this equally burns out of the supporters. It may not directly come from the political leaders or, for instance, the candidates themselves, but the political leaders who are the followers, who feels that they are not satisfied with the processes. Because in all the civil wars we've seen around us, especially in our bordering or neighboring countries, some of these things are done by the ordinary people.
How many civil wars have you seen? Laurent Gbagbo, we were told, lost the election in 2010. He said, no, I won't agree with the popular votes. The Constitutional Court would have to announce its own results. There was an intervention led by France. He was kicked out. That was how a civil war happened. Will you draw parallels between that and the Republic of Ghana? Certainly no. Burkina Faso is currently unstable. Blaise Compaoré came to power because he overthrew Sankara, Thomas Sankara, in a coup d'etat. He remained at post for more than 2 decades. Eventually, there was an uprising. The people said they didn't want him. He's gone into exile. Then Togo, Faure Gnassingbé, the son of Yadema, thought of, you know, going for multiple
been there for
terms,
so many years.
For multiple terms. His family has ruled the country for more than half a century. The people said, okay, we don't agree. Eventually, leveled heads prevailed. Elections were held. He has won. The country is moving on.
Okay.
So when you talk about consensus building, it is important that all the constitutional instruments that are supposed to make political parties see eye to eye with each other on some thorny matters like a new voter register, like IPAC, and the new advisory committee made up of Emile Short and other people. These are the instruments available to parties that feel disenfranchised, parties that feel marginalized in decision-making to run to. And I believe the NDC, as a major political party, is a very responsible party. It's not a party that will come out and call on its people to carry out
but I'm just
war.
saying that, just as I stated.
Leadership, Kwame, leadership is cause, and all other things are effect. You remember the good old days? We ate dinner because our father had a taste for that food.
Yeah.
If it was jollof rice you ate, children didn't make the decision. It was the father. So the decision for a party to cause an insurrection, the decision for a party to cause instability in a country doesn't lie with foot soldiers. It lies with these responsible political actors I'm talking about. And I believe they have Ghana so much at heart that they would rather embrace diplomacy in resolving this issue rather than resorting to
so you don't believe the fact that reality may hit us, where one day somebody will say, okay, I wasn't satisfied with the process head on, and then with the entire thing, I'm not agreeing to it, and so this is where we are. And I don't know whether you've seen that documentary that was shot during the 2008 elections, and how heated situations were, at a point where people felt like they should move to the street, command their people to also come on the street. If the processes are not fair, because we know that elections are not done just within a day. The process builds up before the voting day. And so if this is the process, one side feels that the whole process is being tilted to the favoring of one particular political party, and the other feels that they are neglected, they are not being heard, and then nobody is speaking on their behalf. What then should we expect in the future? Because now they are talking about it, they are talking about plot to rig the election. They've given you several reasons why, and it looks as if we don't have leaders in this country who are speaking
Kwame,
to the issues.
You know, the example you gave, falling from the election in 2008.
Yes.
We all saw the video in the strong room. Kobne Japan was representing the MPP, and then results started coming in droves, and it moved from, the gap moved from a trickle to an avalanche. And the representatives of the NDC, which was in opposition at that time, made the comments. Yes, made the comments you have made. Look, on whose behalf were the two parties representing, were the two parties in the strong room? The NDC people were there for the sake of Prof. Mills, and you saw the demeanor and the conduct of Prof. Mills. They even called him a serial loser. People called him Konongo Kaya. Look, the venom in our political discourse is so bad. But eventually, when God decreed Prof. Mills would be president, he became president without a single shot being fired. Then Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Then before then Kufuor, who would have thought that coming out of a revolution, the NDC would willingly hand over power to a civilian government? It did. So look at the subculture of the people. Even when the election petition happened and the results were declared 5-4 in favor of the incumbent party at that time, that was how razor thin it was. Razor thin. But we didn't go to war. And so for private individuals or political actors to go on radio or on television or write stuff that would cause mayhem or incite people to violence, I think that is a bad political communication posture to take as a country. And we need to continue to engage. And I would commend the Media Foundation for West Africa. In the past election, judging from the venom in our political discourse, they came out with a scheme to name political actors who were making, statements that were not helpful to the stability and security of the country. So if they said, Kwame, for the whole of this month, you have made the worst speeches. So, oh, I don't want that tag. Next month, I'm going to do better. And I would urge them to come back with that scheme because
with all of
helpful.
This sort of statement going in and about the radio, the TV, and all of that. Now, what would be the likely implication on it ahead of December polls?
I think now the state is more assertive than it was in the past. During the lockdown, a young man did a video inciting people against the state, and I'm told he's been picked up. He's been processed for court, for prosecution. So a time will soon come that media houses would have to set the ground rules for communications on their political platforms. And those times, anytime you spoke against government, you would hear a knock on your door in the dead of the night. But we don't want to do a rehash of those dark old days. But if push comes to shove, for everybody who is, libeled, everybody who is spoken against, all on the altar of politics or partisanship, the person can seek redress in court. And I would want to mention a case in point. I wouldn't want to mention the people involved, but somebody made allegations that a certain top government official in the past administration squandered money. The person didn't respond in a heated political debate. He went to court. And
but
now
is it
they are
always going to be the case
they are
where people, yes, is it always going to be the case that people are going to walk to court after they are agitated? Wouldn't there be a situation where reality will hit us in the face, that people will react on the street even before we think of getting justice from our courtrooms?
I'm a politician, and Kwame, you sit on radio and say, I squandered 5 million Ghana cedis, so I slept with somebody's wife. Would I, pull a dagger into you or push a dagger into you?
Anything can happen.
No, I would just go to court. Then the court, there will be damages for the comments you have made. And there are people on social media today, when people spew venom on social media, they think they can't be held accountable. People are hiding behind the cloak of the internet. But mind you, a crime committed against an individual is timeless. So you could have passed a statement against somebody 10 years ago. For as long as that statement can be pulled, you can be held accountable. There are people living in the diaspora who use social media to say all sorts of things about people. And now they can't come home because the moment they hit the tarmac, they are going to be processed for court. And so I think it is important, Kwame, that December 7 becomes the most peaceful election we've ever seen. And what we say and how we say those things. For God's sake, how can you sit on radio or on TV and accuse the former president of killing Prof. Mills?
Yes.
Yeah, anybody who says this should be processed for court.
Yes, but the person is not processed. So what if the supporters of the former president decide to equally attack? Because as we speak, just as you rightly mentioned, the person sat on live TV and made such comment and still walking on the street as a free man. Nobody is questioning him. Nobody is questioning the comment that he made. Institutions are not working.
The wheels of justice grind slowly. I'm sure you've seen in the news that someone who played a key role in the Rwandan genocide was just arrested in France. And it's been, what, more than 2 decades since 1994. So I believe the processes will work, and due diligence always
until a
has
different
to be
government
followed.
comes in?
No, I see all governments, I see this country in terms of governance as colorless. Every party that comes to power is well-intentioned, but perhaps in our, pursuit of the goodwill and the long-term prosperity of the country, Party A may decide we want to do it this way. Party B may decide we want to do it this way. But eventually they are both well-intentioned, like education. In education, the NDC said it wanted to make it progressively free. The NPP came and said, okay, let's do it the radical way. Let's make it free immediately. So politicians are not monsters. They are not demons. They are not bad people.
Okay.
And when you say anything libelous against a person, know that the person has a wife, the person has kids, the person has, loved ones and long relations. So it is important that whatever we say, you don't win the hearts of party apparatchiks only because you insult them most. Let decorum be the watchword in our political communication in the Republic of Ghana in the lead up to the election.
Thank you very much for your time this morning on the show.